Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week on MMA Junkie, we take you on a quick spin through the week's news. And the good news is we got the Vegas crew back in the house. John Morgan, Gorgeous George, and Goze are here. They're ready to go. So let's just crack straight on with it, shall we? And we'll kick things off with breaking news this morning, courtesy of our friends at ESPN, who reported a certain Nick Diaz. That's right, Nick Diaz is getting himself back into fight shape. And according to his manager, is 100% planning to fight again. He's reportedly targeting an early 2021 return. So let's kick things off by doing a bit of matchmaking and book the Stockton native in his first fight since January 2015. Guys, who do you want to see him in there with as he makes his UFC comeback almost 6 years after his last fight? Just one name each, guys. 2 minutes on the clock. And John, you can lead us off.
First, I love the George Garcia clause there. We're only getting one name, but to me, that's all I need is one. It's Robbie Lawler to me. I think that's easy. I don't even have to set that up. I mean, you're talking about two legends of the game. There's history between them. Of course, that legendary KO way back in 2004, I believe it was. And listen, two guys that, one that hasn't been fighting a whole lot and one that hasn't been winning a whole lot. So I think they're in a similar place in their career. And I think there's such, famous names and such beloved figures. It doesn't matter what their track record is as of late. We know the styles will be fun. We know it's a fantastic matchup. To me, Robbie Lawler.
Absolutely. George, what do you reckon?
I would say for him to tell his younger brother, step aside, Nate, I got this. He should fight in the BMF title, a rematch of sorts because it is against a Diaz brother, and you can play that whole Scarface audio, F the Diaz brother, you can do that whole thing, have a little bit of fun with it. No, but seriously, look, if we were leaving out Nate out in the cold, yeah, all right, listen, that's his gig, he needs to avenge that. But it was a clear finish, guys. We had a result, and there's just no disputing that. However, we're not leaving him out in the cold because Nate can always fight Conor McGregor. So we need to get both of these guys back in action, Conor and Nick, and we got the right opponents, Masvidal and Nate.
Love it. Goes. Who's left for you?
The guy that's left for me is Diego Sanchez. I think that'd be a fun fight for him. It's a guy that's kind of winding down his career versus the guy that's been gone for a while. They fought before. It was a very entertaining fight back then, and I don't think it's going to look any different today. I mean, both guys still like to sit there and bang and throw hard punches. So I think they're just going to meet in the middle, and it's going to be a crazy fight. But one thing I would like to see is him on the same card as his brother. And maybe that is when you do that Conor McGregor fight or the Masvidal fight. I think it would be fun to have both Diaz brothers in the house.
Wouldn't that be a fantastic thing? Fans in the stands, both Diaz brothers on the card. That would be something pretty special as the UFC looks to move on from COVID-19 a bit further down the line. But we are right in the thick of it right now, guys, and the UFC has kind of led the way when it comes to sports establishing protocols around holding events during this unprecedented time of COVID-19. But while there's been big successes, especially during the pay-per-view shows, there's also been one or two little wrinkles that need ironing out or a few issues along the way with the fighters having to be pulled from fight cards even after the weigh-ins and the face-offs. So if we take a look heading into the UFC's 20th show during this COVID-19 pandemic, what has gone well for you guys and what changes do you think could be made to make things a little bit better moving forward as sport under COVID becomes the norm through 2020? George, you can lead us off.
Look, there's a lot of journalists out there that be licking their chops to answer this question and just tear them apart. But man, this COVID-19, see, I don't watch just MMA. I watch a lot of sports. And it is tough to get a good grasp on every single thing that has to happen at every single moment. There is no game plan for this. There was no way to preview it. In fact, the UFC, like you said, Simon, they were leading the way. If we throw sports entertainment in there, I think only the WWE beat the UFC back to normality. So, while we could sit there and say, well, maybe they should have done something earlier with Jacare, that was months ago. You know what I mean? And you see the slightest wrinkle, in anybody's test, positive, negative. If there's any doubts, that's it. The fighter's off the card. If one of their team members also tests positive, same thing. The fighter's off the card. They try and shuffle them. They've been looking out for everybody's safety. I tip my hat to them, man. It could not have been easy to do all these reshuffling, new bout agreements, letting everybody know and quarantining everybody. So I have no complaints, honestly, with the way the UFC's handled this.
Yeah, they're one of the most agile organizations in sport for me, and they've done remarkably well to sort of keep everything rolling. But are there areas where you think they might be able to improve things, Goze?
I think maybe there could be a few things. Hearing fighters, we interview a lot of fighters before their fights, and I think we just hear too many guys saying, I just found out about this thing last week, or I don't even know what size cage I'm fighting in. I think maybe a little bit of consistency can help. I know they're rushing to make cards and to stack them up, and sometimes what ends up happening is you get stuck with a few fights at the top that matter, and then a lot of fights that don't really matter. And, it just has that feeling of putting everything together. So I'd say maybe a little bit more consistency going forward, but overall, they've done a tremendous job. And I think that little hiccup at Tachi Palace probably bought them a little time that they needed to create what they did in the bubble, which now we see all the other sports organizations following suit. So props to them.
Yeah, John, I mean, you're there on the coalface. You're actually at these events, taking all these COVID tests and seeing everything firsthand. I mean, what's your overriding opinion of how things have gone so far?
Yeah, I think the overwhelming sentiment is correct. I mean, they deserve praise for what they've done. I saw it in Florida, saw it in Abu Dhabi, continue to see it in Vegas. They're committed to doing this thing the right way. The couple of tweaks I would like to make, though, is a little bit more clarity and a little bit more transparency on these tests. Like, when are these guys testing positive/negative? I know there's some medical privacy concerns there, but I feel like we get these weird announcements, like you said, after the weigh-ins. Like, so does that mean they tested positive on Tuesday or they didn't? So I'd like to see that a little bit more. And also, don't announce a rebooking right away. You say, oh, so-and-so tested positive for COVID, but we're going to schedule them again in 2 weeks. Let's get some negatives in. Let's make sure that, this thing is cleared and people are given a chance to heal before automatically booking them again. So a little bit more transparency in these test results, I think, would do good.
No, makes total sense. And UFC obviously taking place again this weekend, but it is a Bellator weekend. They have a double header coming our way from the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut. Light heavyweights headline on Friday night as former Bellator champ Phil Davis takes on ex-UFC champ Lyoto Machida in a rematch of their 2013 encounter, while Juan Archuleta and Patchy Mix will do battle on Saturday night for the vacant bantamweight strap. Two big main events for Bellator, but which of those two has captured your imagination the most heading into this doubleheader, guys? And if you want to chuck a prediction into the mix, go for it. We'll put 3 minutes on the clock. Goze, you can go first.
Well, I'm an old school guy, and my heart's always with those old school fighters. Well, it's a fight we've already seen. And Archuleta and Mix, that one has a title on the line. There's an undefeated fighter involved in this. You have so many different little subplots that one's the one that really has captured in my imagination, because I just don't see a scenario where this isn't a good fight. Both these fighters have shown different types of personalities in that cage, but the one thing they do is they always come out and they bang. And it just, will Archuleta capitalize on this big moment? Is Mix going to show us that he's the next guy? He could be the future here for Bellator. We're always talking about creating new stars. So for me, that's probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most. And I think Juan Archuleta, the guys he trains with, the guys that push him, his mentality, the way he's been speaking, I think he's going to pull this one off, but I think that's going to be a battle.
Yeah, they're both outstanding main events, John. Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because if you're kind of a casual or maybe doesn't watch a lot of Bellator, I mean, I could see right away why you'd say Phil Davis and Lyoto Machida, certainly a former UFC champion, a perennial contender in the UFC. I mean, they deserve credit for what they've accomplished over in the UFC as well as what they've done in Bellator. And probably the biggest names out of these four that we're talking about. But I'm going to be honest with you. Juan Archuleta and Patchy Mix to me is the best fight of the weekend. I'm talking about throw the UFC in there as well. No disrespect to anybody on that card, but all the fights that are taking place this weekend, I am most intrigued by that fact. And I think Goze hit on a lot of it. I mean, Juan Archuleta is an absolute stud. Yes, we've seen him lose, but he is an absolute beast, man. And what he brings to the cage every time is excitement. Meanwhile, Patchy Mix kind of come out of nowhere for a lot of people. People kind of in the know and knew him as a prospect were saying this guy could be somebody around the camp, that he's at. They were saying, hey, this is the guy. But now he's really showing it, and he's ready to come into his own. And he kind of looks like this next level type superstar. So to me, Archuleta versus Mix, not only the best Bellator main event, but honestly, to me, probably the most intriguing fight of the entire weekend.
Yeah, it's an absolute cracker at 135 pounds. George, you going with the old school guys or the new school guys?
No, I'm going to go with the new school guys. Look, both fights are great. It's not like, there's one that's clear cut over the next. But I guess when it comes to some of these guys that have already worn the strap and they're cruising to the end of the finish line, what this fight does is just basically start to usher them a little bit quicker than the other. The other guy has a few more fights, where maybe they can still both contend. And frankly, both guys still can contend. Both Lyoto Machida and Phil Davis could be champions in either one of the two divisions. So it's a pivotal fight for both of them. But that bantamweight division has been rocking, man, the last few years. And it's not just in the UFC. These are two quality bantamweights. I can't wait to see it. As far as my prediction goes, I just think that Archuleta probably was the better fighter up until about a year, 6 months ago. But what I've been seeing out of Patchy Mix is pretty amazing. I think he's going to be the one that winds up wearing the gold after his fight. His hand's going to be raised.
It's going to be an absolute belter of a bantamweight title fight on Saturday night. Huge weekend. And it's a big weekend for two former UFC female title challengers. Cat Zingano and Liz Carmouche both lost out to Ronda Rousey in UFC title fights earlier in their respective careers, but both have changed weight classes and are now chasing Bellator gold. Their debuts are taking place this weekend across the two nights. And my question to you guys is this: which of those two former UFC contenders has the best shot of winning championship gold in Bellator? Will it be Cat Zingano at featherweight or Liz Carmouche at flyweight? We'll put 2 minutes on the clock. John, lead us off.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Liz Carmouche here, pretty cut dry. And I don't mean that to be any kind of a statement against Cat Zingano or what I think that she can accomplish. In fact, she seems very renewed, reinvigorated. I'm excited to see what she does. The problem is that if you're at featherweight, you got to beat Cyborg, and that's not a lot of fun. I know that she's, we've seen her lose to Amanda Nunes, but I mean, Amanda Nunes is number one pound for pound on the planet right now. So I think that's still a tall order, even at this point in her career. And Liz Carmouche, I mean, look, she's teammates with Alima Leigh McFarland, right? So as long as Alima Leigh still got the belt, I mean, she knows a lot about her. They've obviously trained together, so there won't be any kind of uncertainty. So for me, I think Carmouche just has the easier path to victory.
George, do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. This morning, Chris Cyborg actually tweeted a picture of her next to her 4 belts. I mean, guys, that's iconic what she's done, winning those 4 big belts, Strikeforce, Bellator, UFC, Invicta. And that was a quick reminder of just what kind of a rough road it is for anybody at 145 pounds, especially a lady who's competed mostly at 135 pounds. But that's where she's going to be competing. And like John said, the other two are teammates. I'm sure one's a champ for a reason, but I doubt she always gets the better of her teammates. I'm sure there's got to be a time when Liz has come up, so she's got to have some of that confidence going in.
Goze, do you think Cat Zingano's got a fighting chance of getting the belt at featherweight, or is it really down to Liz Carmouche trying to force her way in at 125?
I think she has a fighting chance, yeah, but it's such a tall order. Cyborg is just so tough to beat. The one person that did beat her, though, you got to remember, Cat Zingano, she's got to win over Amanda Nunes. She's shown that she can battle through adversity and win some of the tough fights, but that was quite a while ago. And things have changed, and MMA math doesn't always work out. So Liz Carmouche, very comfortable on her feet, very comfortable as a grappler. I think that's a very, very tough fight for Alima Leigh McFarland. So I got to go with Liz Carmouche.
Both of them taken to the Bellator cage this weekend. And speaking of people who are chasing championship gold, Alistair Overeem notched his 47th career MMA win this weekend when he stopped Augusto Sakai in the main event of UFC on ESPN Plus 34. In Las Vegas. He's 40 years of age and still very much a factor in the UFC heavyweight division as he chases the title that has so far eluded him in his decorated career. To finish things up this week, I wanted to know whether the Big Dutchman's achievements across 4 decades in the sport, including in K1 kickboxing as well, warrant a place in the UFC Hall of Fame, or does he have to win the big UFC belt in order to get that accolade? He's done a lot in the sport, but has he done enough to get a Hall of Fame inclusion from you guys right now? 2 minutes on the clock. George, I'll let you go first.
If you treat that K1 belt that he won at the World Supermax, if you give him a little bit of that credit and bring it over to MMA, and I know some hardcore MMA fans aren't going to do it, then you might need him to win that belt. But man, when I started looking back, 40 years old, 20 years competing, all the skins that he has on his wall, winning in Japan, winning at Strikeforce, he's competed in the UFC. He's competed well. He competed well in his title fight. For some of the hardcores, he may need it, but no, I think he's a legend right now, and I think he's a Hall of Famer right now. He's had an amazing career. You saw the outpouring of fighters like Derek Brunson, James Vick, Bilal Muhammad. Well, Bilal Muhammad tweets everybody, but still, I mean, they were just coming in on Saturday. I loved it.
Guys, do you agree with that? He's been in the sport for forever, and he seems to have been in there with the who's who. Has he done enough for you to cement himself as a Hall of Famer right now?
Man, I'm a real stickler when it comes to Hall of Fames, guys. A Hall of Fame is about greatness, doing things that other people have had such a difficult time of doing. There's only a handful of people that have this level of greatness. If it's an MMA Hall of Fame, he's in right now. Not having a UFC belt, it does hurt. But here's the thing. The blueprint the UFC has put out has already shown that you don't need a belt to get in there. And a guy who has kind of comparable stats in Dan Henderson, pretty close, right? The things that they've accomplished outside the UFC. So I would say he probably gets in.
What do you reckon, John? Does he get in your Hall of Fame?
Yeah, he's got to, man. I know it's a UFC Hall of Fame, but listen, Pride and Strikeforce, they're basically part of the UFC now, right? I mean, they were purchased. So to me, that all counts, So you got to do that. Dream and K1 aren't part of the UFC or the Zuffa organization, but you can't just ignore what he's accomplished in combat sports. So I get it. If you were just keeping it to the UFC, no, you're probably not. And getting a UFC belt would certainly guarantee that he gets in. But for me, what he's accomplished over that length of time, who's who in the sport, man, he definitely deserves it. Put him in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's done so much in the sport, but will he get that UFC title by the end of his career? We shall see. That is all we've got this week for Spinning Back Clique here on MMA Junkie. We've got a whole load of MMA coming your way this weekend. We've got the UFC on Saturday night. And of course, we've got that big Bellator doubleheader Friday night, Saturday night coming from Mohegan Sun. Wall-to-wall coverage on MMA Junkie, as you would expect. Check it out. Keep it locked. And we'll be back next week for Spinning Back Clique.